and the politics behind its prohibition.
To Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. Mr. John Cornett is standing by in the wings. Hey, John. Right next to me is that wild and crazy guy, Mr. Casper Leach. He's got happy feet, too. For you Steve Martin fans out there, if you like dancing happy feet, maybe you'll like our dancing happy leaves, because here they come right now.
I feel the force.
All right. Okay. Hush, Casper. Hush. Heel. Our first story is from Washington State. 3 teens in southeastern Washington State have been charged with felonies for simple marijuana possession, with the prosecutors saying a new law specifies a higher level offense for those under 21. These teens, aged 14, 15, and 17, were charged in Asotin County with felonies that could get them up to 5 years in prison apiece. Previous to the passage of Senate Bill 5052 in this year's Washington legislature, the same offense was just a misdemeanor with a maximum 90-day sentence. SB 5052, which was supposed to help medical marijuana patients but instead destroys Washington's medical marijuana program, contains the new language specifying youth possession of marijuana as a felony offense, according to Asotin County Prosecutor Ben Nichols. There's something about that name, Asotin. The first part of it seems appropriate. Senate Bill 5052 sponsor Ann Rivers, a Republican from La Center, right there on I-5, who many activists believe is personally responsible for the de facto elimination of access to medical marijuana in Washington State, claims the tougher penalty was designed to deter minors from trying an adult drug. But the specter of kids once again being charged with felonies for cannabis, a bad flashback to the 60s and 70s, which is once again playing out in small Washington towns thanks to the state's badly flawed, laughably weak legalization. This is so embarrassing that even the governor's office felt it necessary to distance themselves from the destruction. The provision, according to a spokesman for Governor Jay Inslee of Washington State, is an, quote, unintended consequence, end quote, of the law focused on destroying, oops, I meant regulating, the state's medical marijuana system, which has been operating since voters approved medicinal cannabis back in 1998. We hope someday that the Drug Policy Alliance, which gave us this flawed, terrible bill in Washington State, will pay to fix it, but I doubt it. Also in Washington State, the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, or WSLCB, on Wednesday announced that beginning October 12th, it will accept new retail applications, quote, using the priority criteria set forth in the law, end quote. According to the board, there will not be an initial cap on the number of new marijuana licenses issued. So stay tuned. Also up in Washington, we just got on a roll with Washington. A Seattle-based Internal Revenue Service agent was charged on Monday with soliciting a bribe and accepting payment from a local recreational marijuana business owner. Paul Hurley, 42, of the IRS, allegedly asked for $20,000 in cash from an I-502 marijuana store in exchange for giving lenience in a tax audit, according to the United States Attorney's Office. Hurley was charged in the U.S. District Court. The owner of the marijuana store reportedly did not ask for leniency. Hurley presented the business owner with a tax bill for 2013 and 2014 totaling more than $290,000, but claimed he had saved the businessman more than $1 million, according to the prosecutors. The agent then asked for $20,000 in exchange for the help, according to a news release from the U.S. Attorney General's office. But They set up a sting, and the IRS agent first took $5,000, then came back for the other $15,000. He was given that, but he was arrested, so he didn't get away with it. Across the country, in Massachusetts, State Senator Will Brownsberger, a Democrat, along with Representative Jay Livingston and David Rogers, and Regina Hefkel, a former federal corrections officer, on Tuesday morning signed a new petition to legalize marijuana in the state of Massachusetts. The signatures were added at a news conference held by the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol in Massachusetts in front of the State House to kick off the signature drive in support of the ballot initiative to end marijuana prohibition in Massachusetts. The campaign must collect the signatures of 64,750 registered Massachusetts voters to place the measure in front of the Massachusetts legislature. If the legislature does not adopt the measure, initiative backers must collect another 10,792 signatures in June 2016, will place the initiative on the November 2016 ballot. The Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol in Massachusetts is supporting a 2016 statewide ballot initiative to end marijuana prohibition in Massachusetts. For more information, visit www.regulatemassachusetts.com. It's regulatemassachusetts.com. A new drive to legalize recreational marijuana in Florida was launched last week. West Palm Beach attorney Michael Morandi is proposing to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Minardi's group, Regulate Florida, needs 683,149 valid voter signatures by February 2nd, 2016 to get the Florida Cannabis Act on the ballot for November 2016. The group's going for 1 million signatures just to make sure. The proposal would amend the Florida Constitution, making buying marijuana roughly the same as picking up a bottle of liquor at a liquor store. Minardi said, quote, "We trust people with alcohol. We should trust people with tobacco and marijuana. As long as you're 21 or older, you should be able to buy and use marijuana responsibly. These people who are using drugs are responsible adults, and they should have the choice to do that," end quote, Minardi said. If approved, the Florida measure would set a deadline of July 2017 for Florida state government to begin licensing and regulating commercial marijuana growers, processors, and retailers. Supporters of the war on drugs often claim that loosening restrictions on marijuana use, such as decriminalization, allowing medicinal use, or legalizing it completely, or even just discussing legalization, will send the wrong message to young people and lead to increased teen drug use. But the evidence has repeatedly shown this notion to be inaccurate. According to 2 new studies published in the past month, teen marijuana use has fallen since 1996 every single year. During that time, 34 states have passed some sort of medical marijuana bill. According to the paper, and they said, quote, "Despite considerable changes in state marijuana policies over the past 15 years, marijuana use among high school students has largely declined," end quote, concludes one of the papers published in the journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence. That study looks at cannabis use among all high school students in the United States as measured every 2 years by the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey. The survey said, quote, "Although our results do not suggest that the rapid pace of change to state-level marijuana policies has resulted in immediate and drastic increases in adolescent use, continued monitoring is necessary to observe how trends change over the longer period of time," end quote, the researchers advise, pointing to one uptick since 2009 as probably being statistically insignificant. The other study, published in the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, suggests that strong disapproval of marijuana use among younger teens is up sharply from where it was just 10 years ago. That study looked at attitudes toward cannabis and its use as reported in the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. These numbers also show a drop in the rates of marijuana use from 2002 to 2013, the last year they have the numbers on, with disapproval up sharply among teens 13 and 14 years old, and roughly flat among older teens. What many people forget is that legalization does not necessarily make marijuana easier to get for kids, because cannabis is already easy to get in most places and has been for some time now. Legalization, since it involves a 21-year-old age limit, can actually make it more difficult for kids to buy cannabis. I think that's what we're seeing. Over in Canada, medical marijuana dispensary owners who could be put out of business by Vancouver's new regulations are not planning on going away without a fight. Only 15 to 20 dispensaries will be approved and licensed after the city of Vancouver, British Columbia goes through 176 applications for business licenses, according to Vancouver councillor Carrie Jong. But owners who are expecting rejection letters said the first no from the city will just be the beginning of a process of appeals and legal action. So they aren't going away without a fight. Oregon wasn't the first state or the largest to legalize marijuana, but when it begins to retail cannabis sales next Thursday, the state will blaze a new trail because it'll consider applications to clear the record of people with past marijuana convictions. Paperwork, which would forever seal old cannabis offenses, is now available in Oregon thanks to a new law, and those who complete the process can legally say to any employer, landlord, or anyone else who've asked that they've never been convicted of a crime or cited for any drug offense at all, will be able to erase that from their record, according to a news story out of the New York Times this past week. So we are happily getting ready for next Thursday's legalization of the sale of marijuana through medical marijuana dispensaries. We'll have untaxed marijuana sales from October 1st through January 1st. Then there's a small per ounce tax up through 2016, and then at the start of 2016, the Liquor Control Board will start licensing adult stores. And so then the medical dispensaries won't be in that business, but there's talk about allowing medical dispensaries to get that other license and sell to both patients and adults over the age of 21. Oregon adults 21 and over will be able to legally buy adult social use cannabis on October 1st. Well, most of them. If you live in Albany, Oregon, and your city council says you don't get to do that. They had a hearing there. A large crowd of cannabis advocates filled the room with about 24 speaking to the council, no one in opposition, but they might as well stay at home, according to a report from Hasso Herring, past editor of the Albany newspaper. 4 members of the Albany City Council blocked recreational marijuana sales in the town. The councilors voted 4-2, enacting an ordinance that bars medical marijuana dispensaries from selling adult social use cannabis from October 1st through the end of the year. So a number of other counties have tried to do that. Columbia County had voted not to allow cannabis sales, but in an appeal before the Land Use Appeals Board, their moratorium was thrown out as being illegal, and so they couldn't do that. Hopefully these folks won't be able to carry that out. But next Thursday is the day when it will be legal to buy cannabis from any of the 270 odd stores here in the state of Oregon. So, hallelujah. Marijuana's been legal since July 1st, and people can grow up to 4 plants per household.
Are we doing a tour of every place that day and just buying a bud here, a bud there, a bud here, a bud
You can.
Just
I have enough.
because we can.
All right. I might go to 1. But anyway, that's the end of our hemp news segment tonight. And now we've got Mr. John Cornett ready to play us some music.
Yes, sir. Hey, Paul. How you doing, man?
Very well.
I think at some point there's going to be a lot of people walking around with a big tattoo on the top of their forehead that says SOS for stuck on stupid. So I think we need to wake up and realize that the cannabis is not the enemy. It's my lover. For 12,000 years, she's healed our lives. For 1,000 more, she will brave the fight. She's my Joan of Arc, reaches through the flames, says, come to me, I can heal your pain. She's my Mary Jane, to me, gives me sight. She holds me up in the heat of the fight. She's my Rosa Parks, holds her seat. She's amazing grace. She is oh so sweet. Saved from hell in the fire of the night. Free my soul and clear my sight. She's my Mary Jane. 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 Thank you.
Hey, thank you, John. I like that song. You know, John will be performing at the Hempstock Festival. When is your session on John? When do you play at the Hempstock Festival?
I don't know.
You're not sure when?
I usually open up the show.
Okay. Well, people can come out there and meet you and meet us. That's October 17th and 18th. If you have a question or comment for Casper, hey, Casper.
Happy Friday.
Our ties match. They pointed out as we walked in the studio. I
Great
didn't
minds
know that.
think alike.
I guess so. But we are taking phone calls. If you got a question for us on the 25th of September, 2015, I think this is show 803, then give us a call at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And we have a caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Good evening, gentlemen. And I was calling to let you know that the city of Gresham has also passed a ban for retail sales through the medical marijuana dispensaries. And the city of Fairview, I was just looking here in the Gresham Outlook, is considering it. And also, if the state of Washington chooses to make it a felony offense for minor in possession of marijuana, then the state of Washington should also make it a felony offense for minor in possession of alcohol and minor in possession of tobacco, if they want to be fair about it all.
Yeah,
So-
it seems fair since alcohol and tobacco are much more dangerous than marijuana.
Of course.
Regardless
And,
what they might think. We've always had the science on our side. Fortunately, it's starting to come around.
But anyway,
but
as
I agree.
As a Gresham resident, I must travel to Portland on October 1st for my social marijuana. And I thank you very much for the program, and I will enjoy watching the rest of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Got another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Yes. You
Hey there.
talked about Washington, which is really interesting.
How you doing tonight?
Good. And I just read that the head of the marijuana program in Washington
We can
left.
hardly hear you. Can you speak
Yeah,
up?
maybe we can get the studio to turn it up a little bit in here. Okay, go right ahead. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you a while ago.
Okay, so I read the head of the Washington marijuana program left for the Department of Revenue because it was less stressful.
They lost revenue. What?
The head of the Washington
Oh, yeah.
marijuana program left his post because he was too stressed out. And he went to the
Yeah,
Department
yeah.
of Revenue.
The head of what was the Washington State Liquor Control Board, it's now the Liquor and Cannabis Board, quit because he just couldn't put up with the abuse the medical marijuana program people gave him after he destroyed the medical marijuana program in the state.
Well,
Imagine that.
Maybe you should have smoked a joint and calmed down.
Maybe so. I think good riddance, if you ask me. They should scrap that whole program and come up with a better one that is more realistic.
Yeah, I like what we're doing in Oregon. I think, thank you for the program.
You're very welcome. Thanks for calling. And if you have a question or comment for us tonight, you can call us at that number there on your screen, 503-288-4442, 288-4442.
We have been seeing a lot of history unroll in front of our eyes here lately, haven't we, Paul?
Indeed, it's been a lot of historic things going on. Fortunately, we've seen marijuana become legal on July 1st, and now we're seeing legal sales begin, untaxed, almost unbelievably. You look across the river, and I went over and went to the opening of a dispensary in Seattle. It's the first time I'd been in a Washington I-502 adult social use store, and they were selling half grams for $10, full grams for $16.
Wow.
It was just astronomical.
Wow.
Well, our regulation here in Oregon, there'll be $79 ounces out there, in less than a week. That, of course, that's for medical patients, but adults will be able to buy a quarter ounce at these stores. That's the limit. But you can go to a different store. Each store will only be able to sell you a quarter ounce per day. But there are about 270 of them across the state, and over 150 of them here in Portland, 15 of them in Bend. As long as you're in a place where there is a dispensary, it should be a good thing. We'll see what happens with these municipal elections like they had in Albany, like that guy was talking about in Gresham. I don't see how they can enforce that. What are they going to do? Have the police go in there and say, you violated this moratorium. No, we can't arrest you because what you're doing is legal. But boy, that moratorium is in place. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I think civil disobedience is called for. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Is this me?
That's you.
Hey, what's up, Paul? Long-time caller and watcher.
Thank you.
I just had a quick comment, kind of how you might opinionate this as well. In Portland, I know there's a huge epidemic of meth and heroin and stuff, and I really think that the medical marijuana and the recreational edibles and whatnot can really help these people, and I think that it'd be really cool for somebody to put together some sort of organization and call it, don't do drugs and something about, but get high, which means, however you want to take that. But I really am a huge advocate for getting people off of that as a crutch. I mean, a lot of people want to say that it's a gateway, this and that, but I really feel that it's a crutch for people that might want to get away from that substance abuse and go back to something that they can ease that as well.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I've seen many people quit harder drugs by using marijuana. I've seen a lot of people quit alcohol and tobacco using marijuana. I have seen thousands of patients come through our clinic. When they come in, they're hooked to whatever opiate or narcotic their medical provider has hooked them to and then labeled them as a drug user. And then they use medical marijuana and they're able to stop using that. As a longtime watcher of the show, you've probably seen our antique medical marijuana bottle collection. A lot of those bottles say that they're for the habituates of opiates and cocaine and chloroform. Apparently chloroform used to be a big problem. And alcoholics suffering delirium tremens. And so it helps those people get off those drugs. And Eli Lilly noted that, Park Davis, these currently existing pharmaceutical companies used to note that right on their cannabis containers from about 1850 through 1930.
Yeah, that's really cool. I thought it'd be cool to have organizations maybe Outside In get involved with, handing out, like a gram or a half gram for people that want to come in and exchange or however they want to set it up. And I just feel like that would be a great thing. But anyways, I'll let you go. I appreciate the show. Have a good night, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate that, too.
I know not only did I give up tobacco by using marijuana, I also gave up disco music.
That's a tough one.
It was.
It's a scary thing to think about you being in disco music.
I need another hit.
You were shaking your groove thing and rang your bell. Let's see. Isn't that special?
When I was thinking about history, too, I thought, how our Congress is really kind of immature, but is still going through growth as an adolescent. We had the Pope speak historically to our Congress yesterday, talking about family values and how we need to protect children, and if you get somebody pregnant, take care of the kid. And then by noon the next day, Congress lost its voter forever.
Well, he's gone. What can you say?
A lot of people cheered when they heard that too.
Okay. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hey, how many people have died from marijuana overdose? Let me start with that.
0.
Well, Jack Hare says about 12 at the end of a rope made of hemp.
I agree with you.
No one's died from marijuana
one of the
overdose.
things have you read Johan Cari's book, Chasing the Scream?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And one of the things that he says and that other people believe is one of the things that the UN and other people want to do is eradicate all need for all drugs whatsoever. But when I wake up in the morning, I love my coffee.
Right.
Do you think it's reasonable to expect all people to get rid of all mind-altering drugs?
That's definitely not going to happen. They tried that, didn't they, with marijuana prohibition, with all these other prohibitions. It's never, ever worked. It does just the opposite. It gives this forbidden fruit patina to these newly created illegal substances. And so
everybody's favorite mind-altering drug is sugar, and I can't see that being eliminated.
No. My father was a sugar plantation manager, so, sir, I disagree. No, I absolutely agree with you.
White
sugar
death.
is a wonderful medication. Although with diabetes and now, but the idea that we have to give up all drugs is just crazy talk.
They don't know what they're talking about. They're just, it's a straw man argument, another fallacy of logic.
No, but if you look at the UN and in that book, wonderful book, Chasing the Scream of Johan Hari, he at the end he dives down to the basic UN principle that someone said at some time, we want everyone to give up on all drugs. And you go, that's crazy. In the morning, I wake up with caffeine, and I'm not going to give that up.
Yeah, that's ridications. I agree.
Some people also think that it's a moral kind of argument, but it's not. I mean, we need medications in the course of a day, or drugs at any rate, that change our perspectives. And God bless caffeine, and also marijuana too, by the way.
They go well together, don't they?
I haven't tried marijuana actually in a couple of weeks now. I'm so glad that it's legalized, and thank you for making it possible.
I am glad that I've been able to work toward that, and it's taken a big community. So we want to thank all the voters of Oregon and the other states as well for finally seeing the light. We got 72% on Measure 91 here in Portland, so we are the vast majority.
Amen, sir. Amen.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks for calling. So we have a studio audience here, so if you'd like to come down and see the show live, well, we're not going to be live next week because I've got to go speak at the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest in Madison, Wisconsin. I hope we're all alive, but our show won't be live. We'll have a tape show. I'll be alive in Madison, Wisconsin. I actually first spoke at the Great Midwest Marijuana Harvest Fest back in 1989, I think it was.
The first time you ever spoke was in 1989?
Spoke at an event in public.
The first time you spoke.
I mean, at an event. I had spoken in favor of marijuana legalization in lots of different venues before that. But the first time I went on a stage and gave a speech about legalizing marijuana, so I'm happy about that. But we have a live studio audience here. They're live too, and just like you. And one of them is at our microphone, ready to say something. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to add to the discussion that the guy just hung up. First of all, with respect to cannabis, which I like to call it cannabis, I appreciate everybody likes to call it marijuana, but to me that's what we call an Illuminati term.
Yeah.
It's made to scare the bejesus out of everybody and make you think that it's something wrong. There's something wrong with it.
It was a racist term when it was adopted. There's no doubt about that.
So why are we still calling it a drug when it's in fact a vegetable? And also,
an herb, right.
How come people aren't talking about the fact that human beings have an endocannabinoid system?
Yeah.
Oops. We're supposed to be ingested.
Cannabis is a whole bunch of different drugs in the herb. You know, these individual cannabinoids mimic naturally occurring endogenous substances in the body, and that's what gives them these effects. But they're not toxic, and in fact, they have a lot of benefits. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, the crowded Republican field for president had a debate on CNN. It was the thing that got more people watching CNN than ever before in history. But a friend of Casper's and mine, Ben Swan, who's been on Casper's Time for Hemp radio network, is now working in Cincinnati at the CBS Channel 46 station, and he came out with a great reality check about marijuana and the Republican debate. Let's watch that video. Here it comes.
Didn't get much time in the CNN debate, but the issue of marijuana did come up at issue. Are these candidates actually hypocrites for their views on marijuana? And do they know what they're talking about, or are they just selling fear? This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. Well, during last week's CNN debate, there were a lot of issues that came up, frankly, and mostly the candidates talked about each other. But in the slim sections that dealt with policy, one issue had some fairly interesting responses: marijuana.
There's at least one prominent example on the stage of someone who says they smoked pot in high school, and yet the people who are going to jail for this are poor people, often African Americans and often Hispanics, and yet the rich kids who use drugs aren't.
So 40 years ago, I smoked marijuana, and I admit it. I'm sure that other people might have done it and may not want to say it in front of 25 million people. My mom's not happy that I just did.
So Jeb Bush admits that 40 years ago he smoked marijuana, and he's probably right that at least some of the other candidates who are running against him for president have as well. So what? The real issue here is the one of hypocrisy. Does Bush or other politicians have one set of standards for themselves and a one set for others?
And it is hypocritical to still want to put poor people in jail.
I don't want to put poor people in jail, Rand.
Well,
here's the deal.
You oppose medical marijuana?
No, I did not oppose when the legislature passed the bill to deal with that very issue. That's the way to solve this problem. Medical marijuana on the ballot was opened up. There's a huge loophole. It was the first step towards getting to a Colorado place. And as a citizen of Florida, I voted no.
So Bush voted against medical marijuana as a private citizen only? Actually, no, that's not true. In 2014, the Tampa Bay Times reported that Bush did, in fact, campaign against Florida's medical marijuana initiative, saying, quote, "I strongly urge Floridians to vote against Amendment 2 this November." The medical marijuana bill in Florida did fail. Then Carly Fiorina jumped in.
My husband Frank and I buried a child to drug addiction. So we must invest more in the treatment of drugs. I agree with Senator Paul. I agree with states' rights. But we are misleading young people when we tell them that marijuana is just like having a beer. It's not. And the marijuana that kids are smoking today is not the same as the marijuana that Jeb Bush smoked 40 years ago.
So let's talk about those two claims. Is marijuana like having a beer? Well, no. It's actually safer. According to the federal government's National Survey on Drug Use and Health, finds that marijuana causes fewer trips to the emergency room than alcohol or even over-the-counter pharmaceuticals per 1,000 users. Here's another. According to the CDC, 1 in 10 deaths among working-age adults can be attributed to excessive alcohol use. Alcohol poisonings account for more than 2,000 American deaths every year. Well, meanwhile, most experts say there has never been a documented overdose death from marijuana use in someone without an underlying condition. So what Fiorina says there about alcohol versus beer, it isn't true. But what is also not true, that marijuana led to the death of her daughter.
My husband Frank and I buried a child to drug addiction.
But that drug was not marijuana. In fact, according to Fiorina's own book, Rise to the Challenge, she claims it was her stepdaughter's struggles with alcohol, prescription pills, and bulimia that led to her death at age 35. It's at the end of the first prologue that Fiorina writes this, quote, "Lori's potential was never fulfilled, but death is not the only thing that crushes potential. What I also know is that Americans are failing to achieve their potential today." So what you need to know is that while technically Fiorina didn't say which drug was responsible for her stepdaughter's death, she was entirely dishonest by making the next statement out of her mouth about marijuana use. Why isn't Carly Fiorina calling for a ban on prescription drugs? Why not a ban on alcohol? We've already tried that. Meanwhile, marijuana, which should be called cannabis really here, comes in hundreds of strains. And today, tens of thousands of American families are benefiting from cannabis oil. It's helping to cure children with epilepsy and treating people who are dying of cancer. Fiorina's statements and the policies she advocates would rob those families of hope while doing nothing to prevent the tragedy that she and her husband went through. That's Reality Check. Let's talk about that tonight on Twitter.
Okay, there's Ben Swan. I know you had a few programs from Ben Swan on the Time for Hip radio.
Occasionally he makes an appearance and he sends his editorials to us to use on the network. So we certainly appreciate all his hard work. He's got
That's a good one. That's for sure.
Very good journalist, to say the least. He's won a couple of Emmys, too, for his work
Yeah,
as a journalist.
That's true. In New Mexico and Ohio. I was noticing that.
He's good at research.
Yeah, we are taking your phone calls tonight at that number on your screen, 503-288-4442. But anyone in the world can watch this show through the internet at ustream.tv, and we're taking questions there in the little chat box on ustream.tv, and they're transferred to me through the magic of text messaging. So one of the questions tonight is, does post-traumatic stress qualify for medical marijuana in the state of Washington? And the answer is yes. Since July 24th, about the only good thing about Washington's Senate Bill 5052 is that it allowed people with post-traumatic stress to qualify for medical marijuana. It cut the number of plants that the patients can grow. It set up a voluntary state registry. But that's one of the good things that it did. It allows people with post-traumatic stress conditions.
Which should make a lot of Republicans happy, because ever since Obama won the White House, there's been a handful of Republicans who have suffered post-traumatic stress from just that event alone.
That's true. You know, Bush gave me stress, and I'm still recovering from that. All the whole Bush family.
Right.
The Bush crime family, I like to call them. I think Obama's been pretty good in my book, but we don't want to get too political here, I guess. Anyway, if you have any of those conditions, you probably can qualify for a medical marijuana permit. You know, you can get a permit regardless of where you live in the United States. There's specific state laws, but there's ways to get out-of-state permits. If you need help finding a doctor who can help you get medical marijuana, call us at that number there on your screen. It's 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. If you're here in the Portland area, you can call us locally at 503-281-5100. That's 503-281-5100.
Jeepers, Paul. I hear that one of our friends released a whole new strain of his own marijuana. His name is Willie Nelson. Have you heard about that?
I have. You know, Willie's done a few things with our marijuana on his website. We have a strain called Lemon Pledge. I think he said he was the Wizard Lemon Pledge in a little artsy video that he and his kids made.
It's very pretty, the Lemon Pledge.
I like it. It's a sativa dominant strain.
And the lemon flower is sweet.
Yeah. But Willie's got Willie's Reserve. It's coming out in Colorado and Washington State. We hope to see it here in Oregon and have more exciting announcements about that in the weeks to come. There's a story that we rated from Time Magazine that's on the top of our hempnews.org website. That's our portal to all the news you could possibly want. Just go to hemp.org and /news.
Is this the Time magazine that had that giant marijuana leaf on its cover?
That's the one.
Oh my
you
golly.
guessed it.
Well, you know, if mainstream press is covering it, then it's true.
I
right?
guess so.
All
Must
right.
be. Well, you know, 60 or 70% at least, most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Depends on the story. There's always the distraction of the moment. You know, we've got the Pope here, the Pope there, everywhere the Pope. I think he's the best Pope in our lifetime, but there's no stories about the Chinese president meeting with the President Obama, and there's
the guy from Cuba. What's his name?
Castro,
brother, right?
Yeah, Carlos.
And then this guy who rides horses in Russia, who's what's his name?
in
Putin.
the submarine, right?
Putin. He's doing some things too, right?
Yeah, we aren't hearing about that very much.
But we're hearing about this guy running around going, "You gotta love each other." Really, John Lennon said that, and like,
look what happened.
Thank you.
Guy. That's horrible. Anyway, we do have a phone caller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I had called a couple of calls ago. One of the things that Johan Hari said that I think that is really important for people to hear, he talks about the iron law. And the iron law is that, when people had to transport drugs illegally, they would really amp it up. But now with marijuana, you can get whatever strongness you want. Now,
That's
when I
true.
was in college many, many, many years ago, I wanted a mild marijuana. So when you get marijuana, you don't have to have super amped up stuff. But what do you guys think about that?
Oh, it's true. You go to South America, and lots of people use coca tea. If you have altitude sickness, it's the best thing. And if you're in the high Andes, you might need it. But they refined it to cocaine, and that's true over and over again.
Let me ask you: did the Pope ask for that recently when he was in South America?
Well, he's from Argentina. My guess is he's had it.
No, but he also asked for it. I mean,
he probably
really
did.
When he went to South America recently.
Yeah.
He said, I want some coca stuff. So.
Yeah, coca tea.
Yeah,
we should all be able to have it.
But the idea that now with marijuana in this country that we necessarily have to opt for like elephant weed or something that hammers your brain, that is not true at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Pope also says marijuana is dangerous, so
well,
he needs some education.
That's fine with the Pope, but he loves coca, or he likes coca, but with marijuana in this country, we can have it a mild grade that is not, terribly.
A wild and crazy yippie friend of mine in New York City named David Peel had an album called The Pope Smokes Dope. Not yet, but maybe soon.
Anyway, we can buy marijuana soon that is equable, that it's not too hammering of our brain.
Yeah, we'll be able to buy it this coming Thursday, July 1st, in over 270 different stores all across the state of Oregon.
Thank goodness, and bless you, sir. Bless you.
There's been a number
Thank
of
you.
times
Bless
when
you
I've
too.
gotten the marijuana that doesn't hammer your brain by accident.
Nebraska no high.
Thank you.
I got a headache from an ounce one time.
Spent a lot of money for nothing.
Wasn't a lot of money then, but anyway. Thanks for your call. We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
It's like investing in Ron Paul's political career. A lot of money for nothing.
Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, Paul. Hello, Casper.
Howdy.
Hey, Mr. Weed Guy here. Do you have any possible ideas that got off a little chunk of wind we had the other day, like a couple of weeks back, that weird summer windstorm?
Yeah, I had plants hurt by that windstorm.
Yeah, I had a few with some branches broke off, so I just saved them. I saved the branches, and it pummeled them pretty good, and they're itty-bitty. They're pineapple chunk. And they're getting kind of whiffy right now. A little bit of crystals for them, and the flowers are doing okay. And I'm wondering, I tied them up, strung them up with some twine, got them kind of standing up. And I'm just wondering, they're pretty stunted now from the wind, really.
As long as they're still green and viable and pliable, then they'll keep growing. One of my pretty big plants broke, and it's going to have less than it would have if it hadn't been broken up in the big windstorm, but there'll still be something there.
Correct. As long as some of it is saved, the rest is, I guess, that goes as part of it, right?
Right.
Okay, Paul. Thanks a whole bunch.
Agriculture is fraught with risks, and so
yes,
it's
indeed.
there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. But when it goes right, we have food, medicine.
Well, see, and that explains why when you look at some spots in Spain, all you see for miles and miles and miles. You know how you see cement here when you go to Cincinnati and look down and see miles of cement? In Spain, you see miles and miles of greenhouses because they know that Mother Nature will take a dump on your crops in a minute and dry you out. But if you control the environment, then you are playing Mother Nature. And if you break it up in a variety of greenhouses, if you have one problem in one greenhouse, you isolate the problem and your entire crop stays good. So there's a lot of benefit to growing inside. I know you are a champion of outdoor
greenhouses
growing.
are okay. In fact, you know, I think, especially the ones that open up, you know. And
those are cool.
They give you a lot of protection. There's a lot of benefits to that. It's more expensive, but...
you know me, my idea of going out to the woods is going to the mall and looking up at the skylight, looking at the indoor trees. So,
you know, back in 1942, the United States government had already banned hemp back in the 30s, but with the attack of the Japanese, they cut off Manila hemp and other hemp sources for rope and fiber and all the different things it was needed for. And so the United States Department of Agriculture created a little video called Hemp for Victory. Here is an excerpt from Hemp for Victory.
Yay!
And heavy-duty tackle. Light-duty fire hose. Thread for shoes for millions of American soldiers. And parachute webbing for our paratroopers. As for the United States Navy, every battleship requires 34,000 feet of rope, and other craft accordingly. So here in the Boston Navy Yard, where cables for frigates were made long ago, crews are now working night and day making cordage for the fleet. In the old days, rope yarn was spun by hand. Today, even the rope walk is mechanized. 160 fathoms to go. The rope yarn feeds through holes in an iron plate. This is Manila hemp from the Navy's rapidly dwindling reserve. When that is gone, American hemp will go on duty again. Hemp for mooring ships, hemp for tow lines. Hemp for tackle and gear. Hemp for countless naval uses, both on ship and shore. Just as in the days when old Ironside sailed the seas victorious, with her hempen shrouds and hempen sails. Hemp for victory.
And that's how we got hemp for fuel, food, fiber.
Speaking of fuel, here's our hemp flame for victory, hemp oil, hemp fiber. You can pour this hemp oil right into any diesel engine, turn the key, and you can drive. It's almost out. But this is hemp fiber, and soon we will be able to use the most productive medical species to grow hemp. The most productive medical cannabis species will make 20 times more seed oil and seed protein than the low THC hemp will do. In fact, the whole reason marijuana was prohibited, and they came up with that dirty racist term marijuana, was to stop its use for fuel primarily. It was the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, fascist sons of a bitches that gave us medical marijuana prohibition. And when we restore hemp, without regard to its THC content, but according to the most productive species for seed and fiber, then we will replace a lot of the petrochemicals, a lot of the wood pulp, stop deforestation, wipe out world hunger, stop global warming. It seems almost too good to be true, folks, but it is. we hope to demonstrate that, and I think Oregon can lead the way, and we're going to try to do that. So we are down to just less than 6 minutes to go. Casper, you want to give a plug for your radio network on the internet?
And time does fly by when you're having fun, to say the least. I want to remind people that we are a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week, all cannabis, all the time broadcasting network. The only one like it out there on iHeartRadio. There's no other popsicle stand in the desert quite like what we're doing. We're also on Roku TV, Google Plus for your Androids. You can find us on iTunes, all kinds of great social platforms. It's Time for Hemp. We got about 15, 20 hosts now that are broadcasting from Mark Emery. We got Judge James Gray, Andrea Herman, myself, Paul Stanford are broadcasting on the network. Great music every other hour to tune in and jam out to. So remember, like a good joint, we are best when shared with friends. And the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's Time for Hemp. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. And thank you, viewers. We have the Hempstock Festival coming up on October 17th and 18th. Took us a long time to get our permit, but about a month ago, the City Council overruled the Portland Police and the Portland Parks Bureau and said, we can't have our festival. So it's going to be our first Hempstock Harvest Festival. Since it's coming October 17th and 18th, it's the first one right around Halloween. So come on down to Tom McCall Waterfront Park. Tom McCall, of course, was the person who signed the bill to first decriminalize marijuana here in the United States. So it's quite appropriate. We'll have it there at Tom McCall Waterfront Park. We aren't going to have a fence around the event this year. Last year, they forced us to have a fence around the facility. This year, we will not have that. There won't be any searching of bags. They won't be doing some of the things they did last year to degrade us. Once again, we got 72% of the vote here in the city, folks. So we have political power, and some of the politicians recognize it. So come down to Portland's Waterfront Park on October 17th and 18th. I think you'll have a good time. We'll have good music. John Cornette over here will be there. One of my heroes, John Trudell, and his band Bad Dog will be there. John Trudell's a longtime activist for Native American and First Nation rights. Bob Dylan said that John Trudell was his favorite songwriter. And Bob Dylan's pretty well established. But there's also going to be the Herbivores, the house band of the Seattle Hemp Fest, and many, many more. So come on down to the Portland Hempstock Festival, October 17th and 18th. You can find out more by looking at our website, hempstock.org, like it's spelled there, hempstock.org. Or you can look at our portal to all our different websites at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. I want to thank you guys for watching. What do you think, Casper?
I think that everybody should know how important it is to end prohibition, and that everybody should take a little bit of time for hemp and to apply as much cannabis common sense as they possibly can.
I agree. We're going to go out on another great song by Mr. John Cornette. We have a pre-recorded show next week, and we'll be back live the week after that. Remember to tune in then and keep working to restore hemp and enjoy legalization when you can go buy it on next Thursday.
Some folks like tomatoes, some like rhubarb pie. I like when my vegetables get me a little high. May not be for everyone, may not fit your need, but this incredible edible vegetable is more than just a weed. Incredible. vegetable. Oh yeah. Some folks like tomatoes, some like rhubarb pie. I like when my vegetables get me a little high.